Hey everybody, Professor Snart checking in again here. As we get a little bit further on into our course, it's only really a few days that have gone by, but again, we just sort of moved so fast. We're getting into the first couple of units and really have the third kind of on the horizon already. So I just want to take a look at the due dates with you. So units 1 and 2, Thursday, May 30th, which is when I'm recording this, but you might be watching it later, maybe on Thursday or maybe Friday, depends when we get to it. And then we have our next unit, which turns around quite quickly, due Monday, June 3rd, which is the due date both for units 3 and 4, so another kind of double due date going on. So in addition to the units themselves, where you really want to be taking the time to make sure you're reading things carefully, reading from the textbook, following all the requirements. If there's a post requirement to a discussion board, is there also a reply requirement, and have you done that, and that sort of thing. I've added a new little note in Unit 2, and it's not really new material in the course, it's just a quick note that's directing you to some of the material that's already here that I think would be good to read earlier rather than later, or actually watch, because it's a narrated slideshow, which is kind of fun to do. It's a little bit more engaging than just a bunch of text to read through. So there's a new note in Unit 2 that just directs you to a piece of our course here that you'll see in the menu, the rules of creative writing. And it's sort of like rules in quotation marks, because obviously there's a lot of variation that goes on in creative writing. I mean, that's a huge category of stuff, from formal poetry to limericks to short stories, novels, that whole gamut of things. But I do think that it's useful for you to have some guidelines, particularly in an introductory course like this, the Introduction to Creative Writing. So if they're not rules exactly, they're guidelines. And in terms of, like I talked about in my first announcement, the writing you do for the course as reflecting what you've learned, in a course like ours, especially, you don't really learn a lot of dates, numbers, facts that you can just repeat back to me. But these rules are kind of the closest thing we get to facts about creative writing, within reason, that I'd like to see you starting to apply. And again, I'm well aware that even if you learn it in the abstract or the theoretical, it takes a long time sometimes to apply those sorts of things in the actual writing that you're doing. So I like to see the effort, if not a perfect outcome every time, which kind of relates to the grading part of it that you should also read here. You're really not graded on how good your writing is, whatever that even means. Most of the grade comes from simply following the directions, doing things on time, and then the fullness of the responses you give to other people, particularly when we get to the workshops. But that's jumping ahead a little bit. So the rules for creative writing, you can see here there's a slideshow that's waiting for you to watch it. You just click the play button and it'll open up. It's a fairly small window, so I've suggested that you resize it for yourself and it opens up into the full screen. And you can move your cursor around and click on the little audio speaker button here, where I will gracefully narrate a whole bunch of stuff that you can just listen to and watch. And you'll see that if you move the cursor to one side or other of the screen, you'll get a little arrow that lets you move through the slides themselves. So it's kind of nice. You can move at your own pace here. It's not really text heavy, so you can, it's fairly quick reading. And then there's, of course, the audio stuff that sort of explains some of the less text-heavy slides. Anyway, I'm just going to back myself out of there. And so obviously the rules apply to any of the formal creative writing things that we do, whether you're writing the short story, a poem, creative nonfiction that we'll get into, all of the official genres that we cover. But those rules really apply to any kind of creative writing exercise that we do within the class, whether it's some of this early stuff like the framing a memory assignment. And again, if you've done this already and now you're just getting this information, like I've noted before, I do make changes to the course, so you don't want to work too far ahead, but clearly because we are on a compressed schedule, I get that people are moving or want to move quickly. So if you feel like you've already done this and now you're getting this information too late, don't worry about it. It's not that big a deal. it's something that you can certainly apply now that you've taken a look at it into future units. And so the unit that I think it'll show up most obviously in, outside of those, again, those formal genre units that we do, is probably Unit 4, which is, right around the corner, honestly, where we're beginning to think about short stories, but also creating narrative, creating stories. So there's a really fun assignment here that I won't get into right now. It's fairly self-explanatory and kind of fun, I think. But this will be a really good opportunity to take some of those rules that are outlined in the slideshow I'm having you watch, and then have the opportunity to think about, well, how can I actually apply those kind of ideas to an actual writing situation? And again, most of what I'm looking for in terms of grading your work is, aside from just basics of whether it's done on time and done correctly according to the instructions, is to what degree you are making the effort, even if you're not always successful, but simply making the effort to apply some of those rules to our various writing situations or writing exercises that we're doing. So, if there's content that you learn in a class like this that's really outside of just the practice you get in writing, it is largely, in addition to the stuff that you're reading from the textbook, which is obviously content, it really is this Rules for Creative Writing slideshow that I put together. So for as informal as it might seem when you're working through it, it really is kind of like a cornerstone of our course. So it really is something that you want to pay pretty close attention to. So like I said, I've added a new note in Unit 2 for you that directs you to the Rules for Creative Writing here, because I felt like it would probably be useful to watch that sooner rather than later. And you'll notice references later in the course to it, although, again, later in our course is like a few days away, a few units away. So anyway, be sure you take a look at that slideshow and really think about it not just on its own, but as the content that you want to sort of apply in each of the writing situations that we now get into in the course. So obviously, if you have any questions about it or anything else as we get a little further along here, be sure to be in touch, and otherwise I'll talk to everybody soon.